make waffles for them every day. My children are the most spoiled.
Waffles?
Waffles.
That's delicious.
Buttermilk, fresh buttermilk, because I make butter every day.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Fresh buttermilk waffles with homemade syrup from trees I tap. And that's what my kids get every day.
That process is insane. That's how much.
You know what's funny?
How much do you produce in like? Sorry,
they are super spoiled.
But eventually they'll be like, "Why the fuck don't we have Disney Plus, Dad? Like, what the fuck?
What's this?
What's going to happen?
You were distracting us with waffles.
So this is what happens though. Is like today I'm making waffles because I do that every day, and with fresh. So we have a mill. So I mill the flour. We have chicken, so we have the fresh eggs. So every part of the process, including the sugar cane, the sugar that we use like in the batter, comes from our farm in Louisiana. So we've made the entire process. And I cook it. My daughter's like, "This looks crunchy, Dad." And I'm like, "The rest of the world likes crunchy waffles, but you like soft waffles." She's like, "Dad, I want it soft.
I want some sog waffles."
And I'm like, "You want it like falling apart when it comes out of the." She's like, "I want it white."
I want the batter. Like just mix some maple syrup in
I'm like,
it.
"You want me to just like pour that batter on your waffle?" Like
just drip it. Give it a squeeze bottle.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And yeah, you got like these crazy people who pay $30 for these waffles you're making. By the way,
yeah, because the only part that we do not do currently, which we have done in the past,
you didn't forge the waffle iron yourself.
I didn't forge it myself, but we are in the process of building a forge just because. I'm like,
I don't know why. Yeah, why don't you already have one?
We had one.
Wait, process of building a what?
A forge.
A forge for steel. So I'm a welder. So I grew up as a welder, but I like being able to, like, the other day I was like, I want to cast iron. I don't want to cast iron, but I want to forge iron a high carbon steel pot, and it's $400. And so I was like, well, I'm going to make one. So I'm like, well, I need to build a new forge then.
Reasonable.
Well, it's,
I'll just build a forge and make my own.
So
Screw your
forge
pot.
A fucking waffle maker is what you got.
not a waffle iron.
I mean, don't do that because
never.
That's a lot of effort for.
Yeah, like for waffles. Like my daughter will still
These
be
kids
like,
are going to bitch about not having.
She's going to be like,
not enough effort yet. Like,
it's crunchy. And I'm like, the rest of the world.
Some quick and easy 6-month waffles.
So the only thing we don't do is, I guess, forge the waffle iron, but we also don't grow all the grain for our flour, just because it's
a whole thing.
It's not worth it.
We don't have room for it on our 70,000 acres. I got a question. Is Little House on the Prairie required reading? Like, and I mean that like for real. I read that shit. I read the whole damn series when I was trying to buy books for my niece for like Christmas. And this is how old I am because I was like, what do kids read? Like, I can't send her Little House on the Prairie. I don't even think they print those books anymore. But that used to be like in every classroom growing
Kill
up.
Mockingbird, man.
I mean, yeah, right. In
It's
Cold
still
Blood. They
popular.
made us read In Cold Blood in like the 6th
what's funny
grade.
is when my wife will sit down at the end of the day, and she's like, "Are you exhausted?" And I'm like, "No, I'm fine." I said, "I still got a couple hours of work left for me." And she's like, "It's 10 o'clock at night. You'll be up at 4:45. You should be exhausted like a normal person." And then I'll be like, "No, I'm fine." And she's like, "Great. We're living in Laura Ingalls Wilder. So when you bring that back," she's like, you don't need to recreate that. And I'm like, no. I've read it one time. And she's like, yeah, but you're recreating it right now.
No, you're fucking Paul Engel right now. Like it's Michael London. Like London. I always forget his last name. He was on Bonanza.
Don't get into one.
Bonanza.
So
the Ponderosa.
Actually, what book did you guys say it is?
Oh, Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Yep. So it's yes, we don't grow the grain. We buy it from local growers, and then so it's funny. So we do make a whiskey, but it's not sold yet. But we have this massive mill, and so we only make whiskey for a few years for a few months out of the year, because we only use fresh harvest. So we don't.
What grain type you going with?
So we go 51% corn, wheat, barley. We open malt our barley.
Not just whiskey. Well, unless you're just not doing that New Oak like you talked about. It's like you're right there with the bourbon mash bill anyway.
We are not bourbon.
I got very good.
We are Ozark Highland. So we open malt. So what we do is we wet the grain like normal. We spread it out across the field on like massive tarps, field tarps. So they're kind of woven tarps, and then we let them sprout open air.
Yeah, that's like the malty, the germination. So you can
so we don't do
unlock
it. We don't do it
particular
enclosed.
sugars. I forget what they change into at that point.
Yeah, well, so it allows the enzymes to begin breaking down the sugar, which is what opens it up for fermentation. So those enzymes will then help ferment the other sugars. So we don't add enzymes to our whiskeys, which is, a bonus for us because enzymes are expensive and they're artificial. For what we're doing, I guess they're kind of a natural enzyme, but we don't like using outside. We like keeping it within the
From what I hear, you like to keep it pretty all natural.
Yeah, we like keeping
I'm
close
sensing
to
a pattern here.
Yeah, terroir. But so we do an open air germination. So we germinate them in the field, and then we open flame stop the germination. So we kind of smoke them with.
What's the process for that? Do you collect them and then run them through some sort of like?
So we put them on a stainless steel grate, and then we just light the field on fire.
No fucking shit.
Yeah, and then we reseed.
And using smoked malts, that's like a brewer technique more.
So you're also using renewable agriculture as well, right?
Correct.
So you change each field and Jesus fucking Christ.
Learn that in FFA, you got to rotate the corn and the soy.
Okay, so everything everything
or alfalfa and corn or something like that.
No, you got it. Soybeans. Because you want the legumes, which pulls the nitrogen in, and then you want like the corn or the alfalfa, which is going to pull it back out. So you want to keep that balance between the pH.
How do you control that? Like when you set the field on fire and you got this fucking grain on top of it, like do you just pull the sheet in like after a minute, or you know what I mean? Like
I'm standing out there with a hose.
I'm completely ignorant, so
I'm standing out there with a hose.
He's got a hat and everything.
I would like to say that it's like super scientific.
The Nobletons volunteer fire
literally,
department.
It's me with a hose and is like praying to God that the wind doesn't shift my direction. Mm-hmm. No, it's not bad because we aren't. So I grew up in Northern Oregon, which you would never do that. Here in Missouri, we have a lot more water. And we use like a pressure pump. So we pump the water from our well into, I think it's about a 5,000 gallon cistern. And then it can pump a lot of water fast. So it's a big pump, and then we can extinguish and stuff. So yeah.
Is your water also terroir?
Yep. So we do not use distilled water for proofing.
You don't do the reverse osmosis.
No reverse osmosis. Just
reverse osmosis. This is so we have a 465-foot deep well that is through limestone and dolomite, and the only thing that we filter out of that, we use a UV filter, but that is it. So
no coronavirus in your.
No coronavirus.
Right.
So
we now corona free.
Yeah.
Now,
always corona free.
Now corona free.
Never having touched corona. Yeah. So it's kind of a unique, and that's one thing that we talk a lot on, when people are like, would you ever grow? Would you ever build to a larger facility? And we're like, yeah, eventually we will probably end up getting to the point where we will grow, but no matter however big we grow, we will always truck water from our original location because the water is so important to the fermentation. And we protect our water source. So one of the unique parts about our water source is that there are no agricultural farms around us that use pesticides.
Hold on, motorcycle gang.
Those guys are cool.
Gets my motor running.
They might be.
Yeah,
they might be the worst people you've ever met, or they might be pretty all right guys.
It's the Salvation Army motorcycle poker run.
I hope that they're the Salvation Army poker run. That would just be awesome.
It's just bells the whole time. Just riding with bells. It's like road rash with bells.
So everything you said about your process and all that shit, the one recurring thing that keeps popping in my head, are you afraid of becoming too successful?
No. But the thing is that we would control that. I have no desire to be one of these large brands.
Because even after everything you said, that makes the price of your rum even less expensive than what it is already. Like,
yeah. And so the reason why our price is what it is honestly because we're trying to compete with massive brands.
Yeah, and it's also not the cheapest rum on the planet or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is, it's competitive pricing.
Yeah, we try to be very competitive, and one of the areas that we're able to do that in is because I'm willing to work all the hours,
17 hours a day. What it sounds like.
Have you thought about trying to push your price point into, because what you're doing, I mean, is so freaking detailed and hands-on and small batch. Have you tried competing with like the Foursquare type stuff? I mean, they go crazy for a $90 bottle of rum.
Yeah, and one of the things that we don't want to do, and this is one of my biggest, we said it earlier. We were kind of joking that none of us are rich people, and that's kind of the thing to me is that I don't want my brand to be something that only people that have money and wealth can afford. For me, it's about I want anybody and everybody to be able to buy a bottle and enjoy it with their friends and family. Because, to me, the reason I started this, so Nobletons, we were kind of like what you introduced me as earlier. Nobletons is based upon a toast. It's not my last name. It's not anybody's last name I've ever met. Nobletons is based upon the toast of Nobletons for the noble character of those we keep. So it's the people that surround you.
Say that one more time. Yeah. Sorry.
Nobletons for the noble character of those we keep.
Okay.
So it's the people that raise a glass. I'm Scotch Irish. It's we are a people that
Irish Blackfoot. So
yeah. We're Scotch Irish. I'm Cherokee, and we're French, and we're kind of
there's always a little bit of dabble.
Yeah, there's like and we we're Cajuns. We weren't allowed to own land for a certain amount of time and all these things, and so it's like it's not about who I am, but it's about who we are. It's who we as individuals. Like when you pick up a bottle, you're family. And so for me, it's like, yeah, could we charge more? Sure. And there will be certain products that we eventually release that will be that we'll have to charge more for just because of the sheer cost to produce it.
Sumac brandy.
Sumac brandy.
But I mean, the amount of effort and work involved in just this white rum, which is normally not hard to find for like $15 a bottle.
Yep.
And just for an idea, what's retail?
Retail it's like 25-ish.
25-ish.
Yep.
But like the amount of work and effort that goes into this is easily worth. I mean, it's a luxury brand that doesn't have that much effort behind it it's going for $60 a bottle easy. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's 9 months of work. So to get that one bottle, so it's 48 days for fermentation. If you don't count the planting and growing and harvesting, which we are a part of. So we're a part of the harvesting and the pressing of it.
Right.
But it's 48 days for fermentation from the time it arrives at the distillery. So 48 days. So once it's distilled, and that's not counting that we're now switching over to more of a sherry production, which is now 18 months in barrel post distillation. So it's aged it's almost 2 years old before it's distilled, and then we rest it for 6 months before we bottle it.
Do you barrel this at all?
Not so the white. No, there's no aging. This is
never touches wood after it's distilled.
Never touches wood, and one of the biggest reasons for that was because we don't add flavoring, filtering, or sugaring. We wanted to showcase the quality of our spirits before it's aged. So when somebody picks up a bottle of the 103, they know what it tasted like before it went into barrel.
Yeah, so you're obviously filtering like the Curacao and the dark rum.
Nope.
No, that Curacao is not filtered. You put that in a cold room, and you get just like with bourbon, you get like the kind of
No, not cold filtering, but I mean like you're getting chars out of the. Oh, it's toasted barrels, ain't it? So you don't get char.
So depending if you get an early bottle from like the bottling, so if you get a 1 through 50, you will get a little bit of char on the bottom, like just a little bit of toast collect on the bottom. Same with the Curacao, which is aged for a year, and there's sometimes a little bit of sediment if you put it in a freezer.
Right.
We had kind of a funny,
and all that.
we had a funny experience this year with how it got so cold. We've never had sub-zero temperatures, so our distillery is unheated. So
your Curacau's macerating, right?
So no, kind of. So we use 14 different botanicals and herbs, and we distill. So our rum.
Okay, before we get into this, did I cut you off from something else?
No.
Okay.
No.
This is natural.
So
no, you're good. I got a couple placeholders. I have a couple questions for later, but this is a very natural flow.
I'm like,
you're like
this
me
motherfucker's going through a goddamn cheesecloth. I guarantee it. Like,
I only know that because back when I started carrying it at Sanctuary, when Joe Conroy got me turned on to it, he brought you in, like we chatted, whatever.
just a fucking.
I would keep that in the basement, and I'd go down and get it, and it's like bourbon. Like you get these little like unfiltered.
No, I knew that, but I mean, like there has to be like.
So we run it through like a stainless steel mesh when it's coming out of barrel, but it's mainly to catch any type of like barrel flaking. But that's about it.
So it's like, when you dump a barrel.
And so the Curacao, we macerate 4 of the spices and herbs. We distill it through a gin basket with a few more, and then we age it with the rest. So we age it in barrel. So this is how. So if you've ever, obviously, you've had. What is the famous French liqueur?
Chartreuse.
Chartreuse. That ages in bottle. So does that. That will get better with age.
What the fuck?
So
indeed.
And we have older versions that we haven't released yet of the Curacao. We have the
Have you had it before?
Curacao?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, yes, no,
okay.
yes.
So we can crack it.
I actually, if you want to crack it though, because I
crack
do really
it.
I keep looking at it, being like, "Come on!"
I felt
I know
like
it's so good. It's
felt like I was starting
fantastic.
to be an asshole by not offering.
So
That was actually like when I was running a volume bar, and like I met Demetrius. I was like, I said
There
that
is
right,
no-
right?
I was looking
I don't
for
even know
something
where the
that's
fuck
not
I am. I do.
yeah. So
I'm not used to not having my wine key on.
But like when we met, and I was like, well, I could figure this out. Like this makes sense.
yep.
You know?
So we try to be very competitive in our pricing, and the only reason we're able to do that is
It wasn't even about that at that point. And I think it was at that point it was like returning. We were just changing what that bar was, and it just didn't make sense. It wouldn't have done your brand any.
Yep.
Now you discuss because when you were discussing where Nobletons came from, the idea of it, you don't want your rum only being coveted by a bunch of rich white dudes. I don't, and this is what I'm about to ask is a little assumptive. So punch me in the face if I'm being too personal. But when you arrived at that conclusion, I'm assuming you arrived to it because of maybe past experiences. And when I say that, is it true you were a day trader at one point? And if you do not have to talk about this, I heard it from your friend Zach. I'm just gonna blow him up. Zach was telling me, he's like, oh, he was a day trader, and then like he had a bad day and decided, it was Zach Conley. He said he had a bad day and then he wasn't a day trader anymore. And so it seems like a natural progression that there was probably some resolution you had, and you're like, okay, I'm not turning my company into one of these. But anyway, whatever you'd like to touch on in the evolution there to go a little off rum.
Yeah, so I worked in the trading arena. I managed hedge funds.
Did you have a smartphone then?
I know. I didn't because I would probably have lost my mind. So I worked in the arena, did it for 7 years, and the adrenaline rush of doing it was amazing. And the money, but there was this use mentality where it's like you're like the people that the people that are affected by the trades that you're committing and the things that you're doing. It's like you have to separate yourself from that. And there's a point where I was unwilling to do that.
I actually had a friend who was pretty successful. He was a bartender for me. And, but he was like, Tony, I'm going to teach you how to do this. And he goes, the biggest rule is just leave your heart at the door and do it. And that you'll fucking kill it. He's like, you have the right brain for it, because like he was just really inspired about how I ran the venue that we were working at together, but he was just like, you would crush it, like you would totally get it, you would totally understand it. He's just like, any emotions whatsoever, you just have to fucking turn them off and you fucking do the job, and you get out and you just look at your bank account anytime you want to fucking feel better about it. And I'm just like, fuck. You know,
and that's awesome that you realize that about yourself. Like you're in that, like you said, you're in that arena, and then your next adventure, like you kind of like grow on the thing that, you know, bothered you there.
Well, and that's what we. So I grew up as a, you know, I grew up on a farm. We didn't have, you know, we were a very big, you know, we're a big family farm, handed down for generations. And one of the things that I looked back on my childhood was I loved being in the middle of in the dirt. You know, when you sink your hands into beautiful topsoil and that compost, and just like years and years and years of proper management, like of not tilling the soil, of not destroying it with pesticides, you know, all of this. And I sat there and I'm like, I'm making money off of companies that would turn and burn a company just on the, you know, just to make money, just to make it bottom line, fix that margin. And so when I left it,
every aspect of that you contain just in that farm, they're doing the exact opposite on spaces way bigger, has a way bigger impact than anything that.
And so the brand to me was, so when you talk about like, you can charge more, but the thing and the profit, like, yes, could I charge more? Yeah. But I don't want to, because I want people to be able to sit down as a group. People sit down at a table and buy a bottle and drink it and talk about like the bad days, the good days. Because it's like, you know, even I caught that.
Yeah. All right. I was just like,
I looked at him and I was like,
it's a 6 out of 10.
But that's, you know, and the kind of thing for me was it's not about me or, you know, my wife and I, you know, like right now my wife is, you know, literally bottling, you know, she's working on labeling. We've got a massive order going out tomorrow. And so it's like, you know, she's labeling. I proofed down the spirits over this past week. She's labeling it while I'm gone, and then I'll be going back to the distillery to work until midnight, and then
she's labeling your bottles. And you mentioned earlier that she is a 2-time black belt Taekwondo expert. Your wife is a badass, clearly.
Yeah, my wife is the most amazing woman in the world, and I say that with like no reservations, because she is. And if, you know, she's also badass.
Oh, it sounds like you guys are, like partners in this for sure. Like, both doing
if you weren't, that'd be a huge fucking issue, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, she's also a biochemist.
Nice. Biochemist?
So, yeah, biochemist. So from my kind of crazy botany, weird artistic side, my wife is a biochemical, you know, kind of engineering master. So she can, like, when I'm
most like most of those people I feel like are the mushroom heads. Like they're the ones that like for some reason gravitate towards fungus. I don't know. Is like, does she focus on something in particular?
So she's really focused on yeast and like yeast ecology. And I'm this weird, you know, like, so when you were talking about honeysuckle, we actually make honeysuckle wine and cross-pollinate through fermentation lines in every batch.
Say that one more time.
Killed it.
So when you said honeysuckle, so we cross-pollinate honeysuckle wine during fermentation. So we use wild yeast in our honeysuckle wine, and we cross-pollinate the yeast through air. So you'd have an air tube that connects one fermenter to typically a bucket of water to keep bacteria from getting in. So we hook that into, kind of use it as a doubler into our rum. And then we pull the air tube off of that. So you cross-pollinate, and we do that with a bunch of floral botanicals. So, yeah.
Yeah, back to your tasting notes, which were dead on,
Yeah, it's kind of a funny thing when people are like, hey, can you get this flavor in there? And I'm like, well, most distilleries would just add a flavor to it. We cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
And it's just to kind of create more... botanical awareness.
A wider field of
Yep.
a flavor, and you know you can tell that, like, it's an experience as opposed to a flavor. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
There's like,
There's a process. There's a history.
yeah, but it's like a nasal actual essence as opposed to just like, it's like the difference between like,
It's not the ghost of the flavor. Like you're actually getting
Giffard's like Banana de Brazil, like drinking that as opposed to like 99 bananas. And it's like one tastes like a runt and one tastes like you're actually experiencing a fucking
Give it up
banana.
for Tempest Fugit. Their freaking creme de banana is dumb. Like it's not yellow because at that point bananas would have oxidized and not yellow.
Lim
Like
and
they're
D would
so
probably hang out
fucking.
and have
It's
a
also
good
a
time.
$40 bottle of creme de banana. So
This is fantastic.
It's fucking great, ain't it?
Yeah.
It's just like a little kiss of hops.
It's not. So one of my biggest problems with sours is when they're like over the top hipster.
Fucking American sours.
now define that because there's two ways on this, and I have an opinion. Like I've done scratch brewing sours, and those are essentially drinking vinegar. They're delicious in a 3-ounce serving. Then there's Prairie, which I get as like fruit bombs, but I fucking love Prairie sours in this weird little blackberry.
So
and
can I
cherry
disagree
ones.
with your
Anyway,
opinion?
What's that?
I like your opinion. I think that's pretty good.
Which one?
You said I have an opinion. I was like, I like your opinion. Let's go with that one.
Nice. Okay.
It's like there's that.
Sure.
It's called Distill, right? The brewery that makes Syncopathic.
I don't know.
Are you familiar with beer?
I am not.
So I think it's Distill Brewery, but they make Syncopathic, which is a highly hopped sour, and it's fucking awesome in a can. And for one of my accounts, I was like, fucking, let's get this on draft. Like, this is fucking great. And it was just like fucking like lacto in your fucking face. And then it was just like, ever since I tasted that, it was like almost every American sour has just been a recurring of that where you're just like,
Oh no!
You
Like
fucking
Prairie
took fruit
for me,
juice
Prairie. Oh yeah, no.
and threw fucking lacto fucking.
So lactobacillus. So funny thing about kind of that lacto side. So we actually make a family recipe. We make a milk whiskey.
What?
Yeah. So so it's an imperial milk stout. It's a family recipe that's been handed down for generations.
That should be a product here, right? Like, am I wrong?
And
Is that
we
not like a
we
Full
actually
Rush?
pour raw
Of
milk
course,
into
like
it.
I mean, if people just tell me they're making these things and are willing to sell them, I believe. ... We
No.
would like to buy them.
You can
And
just
sell
come out and
them
sample.
and tell their story in an appropriate setting.
I only make a few bottles every year. Well, it's like I make a barrel every year, and then I give the bottles to my family. But yeah, it's an imperial milk. It's kind of an imperial style stout, that we pour raw milk into.
Off camera, I will pester you about this
ahead.
because
So
you
just
know we'll sell it for a
flavor
lot of
oil
money.
at that point. I mean, like, imagine it coats your whole mouth.
It separates the whey, and the whey stays in the fermentation, and then the milk curdles on top, and then you can actually separate out the milk. And
You're making beer yogurt,
no, you actually make beer cheese.
beer cheese. Okay, yeah,
And you can
He's getting
separate the
curds,
beer
I guess.
cheese and then eat the curds, and it's delicious.
You fry them. Oh man.
Oh yeah, we do.
Why are you not? You should just have the world's best food truck. Like you got rum
I have
cocktails
so
and
much
then all
time.
the
Just
add it
I have so much time to do this food truck idea.
Yeah, clearly you just Barry Allen over here. You got infinite amount of energy here.
In 3 episodes, I will be coming back with my food truck.
All right,
Yes.
so
What's it going to be called?
so with everything going on, like, I think you walked us through like a quarter of your day, but the whole thing is like, well, you obviously have some people helping you. Off camera we mentioned it, but you were just like zero.
Yeah, so the distillery is run by myself and my wife. We don't have. So my wife works a day job. She's a biochemist.
Do you make the 7-year-old watch the 5 and?
Well, so my
it's
5-year-old,
5, 3, and 1.
5, 3, and 1. So my 1-year-old is strapped to my back usually. He's awesome. He's like the chillest kid in the world. Like this guy, like
It's crazy how different
He wakes
they
up
are,
every
too,
morning
when you get
smelling
them.
waffles. He's got to be chill.
Yeah, he's super chill.
I only have one, and he's fucking nuts.
He also makes him listen to metal songs all the time. Didn't you have like a
Yeah,
big
I
metal
listen to
song?
like
Yeah.
I'm listening to like Kumbaya and stuff like that
No.
because I'm trying to keep my kids calm. But yeah, so they're huge helps actually. My 5-year-old I think probably knows more about distilled spirits than most 21-year-olds.
That's easy to say.
Yeah. Yeah, it just
think
kind
of
of
the head
terrifies
start.
me.
Think of if he ever actually like an actual interest in this. I mean, God, can you imagine?
Oh, I know.
I mean, that's a whole lifetime of knowledge before he's old enough to even do it.
He might be the first 21-year-old who will never drink Fireball.
Let's hope.
Only 17-year-old.
Fuck you, Dad. Give me a Rumpelmints.
He's like going to bars and already being a snob. Like he's 21 years old. Everybody's like, oh, let's do what do people
Give me
drink?
a
Fireball.
shot.
Let's get Fireballs. He's like, no, I want 4 square criteria. You guys are idiots.
That's your hope with my offspring aren't.
What about that
Give me some
duck? I feel like I've had it before. I feel like I made that bottle.
But yeah, so it's the only reason we are able to do that though is because we have an awesome community within St. Louis that lends itself to a ton of help, because I can't also go sell our product,
Right.
and be the brand ambassador for our product and also be the manufacturer, and we try to do a lot of that, but it's because of that community within St. Louis that I don't think a lot of people know that about St. Louis, that we have this like insane small town community within the spirits and food world. And
unless you're a part of it, you probably don't know that it exists.
Nobody knows. Like
it's its own anime series.
We touched on it when we were talking to Phil, but like if you really want to do something, it's easy to get like 20 people involved.
Yep.
And that 20 people is a bigger footprint here than like other cities, especially when most of those 20 people know each other and respect each other.
Yeah.
And St. Louis is very solid about that. Ted Kilgore will tell you that he's worked with bartenders all over the country, and he seldom finds bartenders who work as hard and network as hard as St. Louis bartenders.
Yeah.
And we'll support whatever crackpot freaking bullshit thing they're trying to do, like a podcast.
You're also experiencing the same thing that like Bill and Kathy experienced with Big O. Like they're great people and they have a great product and it stands up for itself, and automatically, because they just thought it was just going to be like, here's this cutesy like after dinner drink that we can have for people, and when we have them on, they'll say the same story, but like instead it was like every bartender was like, oh, this is a ginger liqueur that I actually want to fucking drink.
Domaine
Tell people
Canton.
about it. And it has
terrible.
And it has this cool body and has like lots of different uses, and I can fucking make this work. And I mean, and they had no idea that this was what was going to happen with their brand,
Yeah.
And they also did, because they went the brandy route, I think the one time, because they made this peach brandy or apricot brandy. I can't remember. It was like 2 years ago.
They still touch
but
on
they
that.
had to like sell it for, it's an expensive ass process. That's why I was intrigued
same
by
thing
your
with
sumac brandy. I'm like, Jesus.
They do
Well,
like
so
2,000 pounds.
Yeah, 2,000 pounds per barrel, and it's a 15-gallon barrel.
Okay. What does 2,000 pounds of sumac look like? It's not heavy.
No, it's big, and because the berries are like the size. So to visualize it for somebody sitting at home, the berry is about the size of the ballpoint, and the like. You know how like on a ballpoint pen you have that little part that comes down to the ballpoint. It's like that size in a little tiny round saucer. It's like the size of a seed grape.
So is the wine toxic until you distill it?
No.
Just because sumac is...
No, you
sumac,
can just eat
You
sumac.
can just eat sumac.
Not poison sumac.
Yeah.
Sumac. Which people say that here all the time.
Don't eat
completely
poisonous.
ignorant. I thought-
Sumac is not poison sumac, which is
No.
I thought sumac was actually toxic until you actually cook it.
Nope.
No.
So you have
sumac and then poison sumac.
So we use native sumacs, and so it's actually all harvested off of our farm.
Ben Parimba, I'm sorry, by the way.
I wouldn't know if I didn't have it in my face every day.
Yeah, but you were running a Moroccan restaurant also.
I did for like 2 seconds.
So sumac, and it's really interesting because you have a lot of the sumacs in the Mediterranean food and like different Eastern foods used. Sumac is a beautiful spice, but when it's fresh, it has this amazing citric acid. Like it'll literally.
It's actually my favorite thing about it.
It'll sweat.
It's like a dry citrus. Like
we use it as a souring because we don't use lemons or limes here.
Right.
So like outside of vinegars and actual citric acid, it's sumac's the other way to do that.
Well, it's in our carousel.
I have a sumac shrub in there. We'll try here in a minute. No,
Yeah.
I lied. It's spice bush. S words.
But yeah, and
swords.
it is a lot of 2,000 pounds is 2,000 pounds. It's a ton.
It's a ton.
A metric ton or a ton?
No,
It's a standard ton.
It's a ton.
it's a ton.
Ton. Cheers.
If only we could go to using
Special
what,
highball. Fucking delicious.
yeah. Don't get
I
me
want to
started.
like eat this with ice cream.
Don't get me started on like using metric. If we would just as a nation just switch to metric, it would make my life, and I think the world's life, easier. Because
Jeffrey Mole, who eventually said he'll come
when
on
my
here,
bottle is
bakes, he
700,
says the same thing. He's like,
Oh, Jeffrey was always down. We
would
launched
say
about
that.
the same time as Bakery did, and I was like,
Oh yeah, no. He's because he's doing the bakery thing and he's been a bartender forever. He's on his Instagram always talking about like I cannot believe
no, it's stupid.
like that
So
we're the only
we
three
get
countries
taxed
that do this.
on the proof gallon, and yet we sell in the 750 milliliter.
It's true.
Do you know how hard it is to convert hundreds and hundreds of bottles? And then you're rounding.
"What's
Are
the
you
thing? You got a smartphone now because
Yeah.
there's apps for that."
Yeah, there are apps, but do you think that's what the United States government uses to calculate your taxes?
I understand.
I find
I'm
it
sorry.
like
No, they have like a random percentage number, and if you ask them, okay, what are you dividing by in Excel? Like, well, no, we're counting the bottles and timesing it by 5. What? You're counting my bottles and timesing by 5. I'm like, you understand there's decimal places that are rounding, right? Like, that's not how we do
It's not our problem, sir.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's how taxes are calculated.
We're not into conversion. Talking about the post production process, there, I had like random question. Used to be hotly debated. I don't think anybody cares anymore. But what's your opinion on post production sugar? Like when you talk about things like El Dorado, they're good rums, but like, and I know there's no real rule to it, but just opinion on, I can guess based on everything else we've talked about today. But what's your opinion on other people doing it? Like,
Actually, I'm not familiar.
So there's like no rule. Like El Dorado was kind of the first ones that got caught, so to say, doing it. But you can add sugar after the spirit's made. That's why El Dorado is freaking golden.
Well, so
It's-
clarification.
But anyway, like, I'll let the rum guy tell
clarification. There is rules. They're just not enforced. It is up to 2%.
I was told no by
No,
some guy from
there's-
Appleton was like, "Oh, there's no."
Yeah, we've
There-
always.
Real.
I think
It's-
just learning about spirits in general, like
There
I
are
think-
rules, but some of them are not enforced because it's like when it's all about tax dollars. Something it's like, well, I'm making tax dollars. Who really cares?
It's
like,
not
there are
unknown to happen in the world.
There are rums being made in the United States being made out of beet juice,
Yep.
yep.
and they're calling them a rum. And
when
the
you say
law,
those rules, are those rules like whiskey where you can add like a certain
so
percentage
it's a
before it changes category?
So
or
it's 2%, which the rums that are adding sugar are well over 2%.
yeah, they're double digits is my guess.
Lots.
Yeah.
So my take on it, and I won't speak against any other brand, whatever. But
Unless it's Diageo's
Captain
brand.
Morgan's just fine.
well, that's actually a liqueur. If you look at the label,
Oh,
it is
it's one of
under
those ones that use the
40%
weird caramel carcinogen.
E35. I know that.
Leave it
So
to the brain trust over. Sorry.
yeah. So
We'll shit on everything, so you don't have to.
Yeah, no, we're into it.
It's totally fine.
So I am against sugaring, and here's why. I'm against sugaring because it takes away from the purity of the spirit. If you want to sugar, make a liqueur. And it's because as an end consumer, if you buy a bottle of rum, you're assuming that the flavor that's coming out of that bottle is a good representation of that category.
Yeah, like what you're saying is when you talk about spirits, like the one, I guess, a big contributing part of the art of making spirits is here is something I have made that has come out of a still. And yes, there may be barreling, there may not be barreling, but like other than that, you're looking at a naked-esque proof down product.
Yep.
But there shouldn't be like, because the moment you start doing anything post-production like that, I feel like you said, make a cordial because now you're Now you're making it a cocktail, basically.
Yep. You're making it.
You're just saying bourbon should be bourbon, tequila should be tequila, and gin should be gin, so on and so forth.
Yep.
Yeah, and
so
if you
on
make
and so
a good
forth.
version or a bad version or a funky version, who cares?
Like if there's a category for sugared rum, then use that category. Like for gin, if gin is slightly sweetened or has something that adds sweetness to it, it's an Old Tom. That's the problem within
the proper way to make a Tom Collins. Amateurs use a freaking Old Tom gin. It's not Gordman's.
Remind me of Tom Collins in a minute after he.
So I'm
Mandela
against
effect with Tom
adding
Collins.
sugar, and it for me it doesn't. And I'm also against adding colorant or filtering, which kind of puts us in a weird category because a lot of brands color and filter and are against sugaring as well. Some really prominent, well-known rum brands that are kind of purists like us still color, and I won't color. And it comes down to the chemical composition of the colorant. Because if you take an artificial chemical colorant and you're like, well, it doesn't add flavor. And I'm like, well, why are you adding it? Don't put something in the spirit that wasn't naturally there to begin with. If it comes out a barrel lighter than you like, find a different barrel.
Well, aren't you finding also that people are more interested in the more natural type of things too? I mean,
yeah, yes and no.
Whether or not they even
It's
realize it.
harder to educate. So we find it's hard for me being the one person to go out and educate. But for me, it's like I can sleep at night. You know, when somebody emails me and says, "Hey, why is the color different?" I'm like, "Well, it's because I came out of barrel."
You watch even like all these whiskey, like Marie, they used to do Castle and Key. She started the Glencairn company, but they're doing the blue glass and the like blackout Glencairns now because they're finding like too many people are judging spirits on the color when it's literally got the least amount to do with anything.
Yep.
So like if they're tasting bourbons and they see something's got a darker, richer color with that E.H. Taylor look, they're like, oh, it's a great bourbon. But some of these other ones that may not have a great color, but are superior bourbon.
Well, so
they get discounted because of the color, so they won't let people do the clear Glencairns anymore.
Which is crazy because viscosity is the biggest effect to that. You know what I mean?
Oh, so yeah, the oils you're picking up, I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so one thing that we do interesting, like, and this is weird, like getting into, but we distill to proof. So a lot of people are like, oh, so you must make your rum. So if you look at most rums,
So you don't add water post. You've got it down to that great of a science. Like,
we distill to
temps
proof.
and
So
that's crazy.
So, and also what's fun is when we age our water. So any water,
I don't know why I expected it not to be
any
aged
water
water
we add to it to proof it down.
What do you age it in? Like stainless?
No. It's the same barrel. The barrels are married.
Huh.
So we find barrels that are made out of the same tree.
Is that temperature controlled, or can you just put it in there
No,
and
we
let
put
it
it
hang?
we put it in a rick house. We put them right next to each other. And usually we will put the barrel that's aging the water surrounded by the barrels aging the spirits. So
Keeps it nice and warm. All right.
and we have to add alcohol to it. So it's just a super low proof alcohol.
That was my question. I'm like, how do you keep this thing from molding?
Yep.
As you guys would have a lot of experience in that, I imagine you had a system.
Yeah. We love, so a lot of people don't like mold.
Is that
and
what
age
you
our
use
water.
the NGS for, or is that
No.
the low proof alcohol is just
So it's the exact
More of the
same
same.
spirit.
Gotcha.
So if we put, 53 gallons away of this, we will put 53 gallons away of 10% alcohol water right next to it. Same spirit, married. So it'll come out of the same batch, same harvest, everything.
And I know you mentioned this, and I just want to make sure I'm right. Your water supply is pretty much well water, right? Am I?
Yeah. It's
Do you
straight.
do anything to affect the mineralities involved in it, or nothing at all? It's
Nothing.
fucking.
It's natural spring water. We UV treat it just to make sure that nothing because
right.
you're adding it to 63% alcohol, if you have to proof down a little bit. So it should be completely, but primarily we're adding it into fermentations.
Have you seen any other distilleries or anything? Has anyone ever come to you to study how you guys are doing this and stuff? Because this is highly unique.
Beyond that, this is like documentary material. I told I didn't need segments today.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying, like, not only is it highly unique, but I imagine other people would want to watch to see what you're doing to see this.
So we've never had really anybody approach us about doing it. And I don't know that we would open up. So like we were talking about earlier, is we're a semi-closed facility.
Like we were talking about proprietary functions.
Yeah,
earlier,
we
like I think this is kind of like a Tesla thing where it's like if you just told everyone exactly how you were fucking doing everything, there's going to be very fucking few people who actually do it. You know,
it wouldn't matter. They're not willing to do that. Put that kind of work in.
You know, 5 years down the road, maybe.
Well, and that's kind of how we approach. You know, it's like everybody's like, well, "What's your mash bill?" Sugarcane juice, water, and yeast.
Right.
You know, it's like our whiskey.
It's like when you go to restaurants, you know, what seasoning do you use? Salt and pepper. You know, it's like the bare minimum.
Yeah,
and do good products.
Yeah, and for us, it's like it really comes down to long fermentations. Most distilleries can't. They have to, like, we're in the process this next summer. We're going to be building. They're going to be 800-gallon underground cisterns for fermenting in, because we want to use native Missouri clay to build aquifers under our distillery. And it's like brands won't do that because what happens if something weird takes place? And I was like, well, that's great. I'll put that in a special barrel. And if it's good for the market.
Which is funny because most places would grab that barrel, just dump it back into the still and fucking run it back through and be like, okay, that was a mess up. No big deal.
Yep. And for us, it's like anytime something comes out different where I notice it, and a lot of people are like, well, do you put your hydrometer in? Do you distill off proof? And I'm like, I distill off smell. I can tell you from 100 feet across the distillery if something's, you know, off or, you know, and
actually, so this was a point I brought up in one of our last episodes.
I'm sure I'll remember it
with the bourbon and blondes girls.
Oh yeah,
and we were talking about how like kind of like Old Boy Wild Turkey used to be, where Jimmy would just kind of run around and taste barrels. He refused to pay attention to age statements, and he just knows when I tasted it and it's ready to go. It's ready to go. And I've been drinking Wild Turkey since I started drinking, so 15 years.
Yep.
15 years old.
15 years old. But
listening to Soundgarden and smashing turkey.
I go, I don't think that Jimmy Russell has the best palate in the world and can just taste every fucking whiskey and tell you what it is and tell you when it's ready or not. But I do believe that his brain is attuned to what his product is and when that's ready to go. And do you find yourself, like, obviously you have a sophisticated palate, obviously, but
there are days
as opposed to
I love waffles.
I mean, as opposed to just like the 21-year-old chugging Captain Morgan every night or whatever. But I'm just
Plot
saying,
twist. That's exactly what Demetrius.
But I'm just
does.
saying, like when you say things like, I can tell by the smell, like when everything's like how I distill is by smell, like. Normal people, even people who are interested in distilling, like bartenders who are interested in it, they don't understand that your brain is attuned to your product so much so that you understand it as almost as a personality more than an actual science. You know what I mean?
It's like your cows.
Well, and so when we were talking about my wife, like with the way so my wife's a scientist. Mm-hmm. She's incredibly brilliant. She's smart. But the difference between the way that, it's funny because my wife is actually an artist. So if you ever look at our labels, my wife actually hand paints these and then we digitize them.
I had forgotten that, but I remember you saying that now. Like, yeah, it's
so
is there anything you take a fucking shortcut on?
No, this is the problem with sometimes what we do.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So it's not like the whole label she paints, but it's the floral, the floral.
Yeah.
So the floral, every single of the bottles is actually different. If you look at the Curacao or the red, the 103, the background's different. So she's actually an artist, but the way I approach distillation, fermentation preparation and distillation is I approach it from that standpoint of kind of being an artist where it's like, I don't take many notes. I don't write down stuff. I can taste, I can tell you the sugar composition from one batch of sugarcane juice to the next batch based upon harvest and temperature. And like, so if our average temperature during harvest for sugarcane down in Louisiana is, 93 degrees and next year it's 102, I can tell you the difference between the sucrose just by the aroma coming off of the container when it's coming in. And I
just have never noticed. You can actually see, like, it looks like, it's actually painted on. I've never. I thought it was printed. Sorry, I'm just like looking at it now, and you can fucking tell.
Well, so it's not painted on this.
Oh, it's not.
No, we digitize it.
No.
After it's painted.
After the fact.
She
digitize it and then they throw.
Oh,
yeah,
man, because it looks real.
Yeah. Well, and we spend a lot of time, so we opposed to just buying mass-produced labels. We actually work with a small label printer. That stuff's good, isn't it?
You know, it's delicious. I don't know why I give a shit. Yeah,
I'll pay you for it.
you ain't gotta. Don't you worry. Angry Handy J's in the parking lots. Nothing.
But yeah, we don't take a lot of shortcuts, and it's just kind of because
You don't take any. Like, what's your shortcut? Like, what's your saving grace that you're like, I'm glad I don't do this. But
the one shortcut that we take.
You don't make the caps.
Well, we those caps we do import.
I thought you were about to tell me no. Well, actually,
We push together petroleum.
while I'm making waffles, I'm
Until it's
actually
our own
pouring
plastic.
plastic for this cat mold.
we melt it on our
It was
stove.
right after milking 70 cows. It's only 6 a.m.
Three.
Yeah,
Three.
got
I
my
never
whole
said
day ahead of me.
70.
Just warm-ups.
So the one shortcut that we do take is that I can walk to work. So I can take that short 20-foot walk from my kitchen door, so I can start my coffee and walk out and turn on the still and then walk back. So I feel like there's a little bit of laziness there, is that it's pretty awesome being able to walk to work.
Just so you know, your idea of laziness.
I just feel like at one point there's going to be a ship from another world that lands on your property, and you're going to have to raise that Kryptonian to be a good person.
I hope not.
Pa Kent, fucking salt of the earth, son of a bitch. This is fucking awesome.
No, it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of a labor
Your
of
parents
love.
are just like proud as hell. Like, you're just like, look at this guy.
So you want to know funny? So my family doesn't drink.
What's that?
Your family don't drink.
My parents do not drink.
They don't drink. Do they? But like they get what you're doing as an art beyond just drinking, or no?
Probably not.
No. Okay. Sorry, I was again assumptive.
No, it's so I was raised so funny. So I was raised by a single mother, and greatest amazing woman.
She was a farmer, right?
Well, so my grandfather was a farmer.
Okay.
He was a metal worker, logger.
Mother's dad?
Like, yeah. He kind of raised me from like the time I was like 6 on. But my mother is just, she's an amazingly strong woman and put up with I was a very rebellious child. I feel like most artists, like people that like go out and like want to do stuff, were kind of all rebellious.
Fuck the farm. I'm going to day trade.
Yeah, exactly. The ultimate form. And
then you get
I don't need your land, Pepe.
You have a Lifetime movie in there somewhere, like.
I hope not. I've like spent like 20 minutes watching one of those.
Local distiller, former day trader falls in love with Taekwondo champion.
Yeah.
And they start a distillery.
Stranger than fiction, for sure.
There we go.
Scientist Taekwondo champion. Let's not.
Yeah, scientist.
Is she a doctor?
No.
I didn't want to not say doctor if she was
masters.
a doctor. God.
So yeah, she's
master at all things apparently.
Yes. Yeah, she's awesome. I don't think that any other, and that's the thing is like I think the industry that we work in, like we bring together like the most random assortment of creative individuals that any other industry wouldn't work.
And with crazy different backgrounds. Like, I mean, talking about yours, and Tony's brought up he's a fucking astrophysicist. I'm me. I got my own thing.
If you don't use it, you lose it. So
yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it's crazy. And there were beer bars in Springfield, Missouri, where I used to live. Patton Alley, which is now closed as of last month, which is kind of weird. It's been around forever, but they're a collective. They had, I think, 3 masters and 2 PhDs behind that beer bar that were just working as bartenders because it was way better than doing whatever it was in their field.
Well, that was always the funnest thing when I started managing bars and I would be like talking to young people and they're like, I'm just doing this to get through college. And I'm like, oh, what are you majoring in? And they're like, like European literature. I'm like, oh, so you're gonna be a bartender for the rest of your life? And they would be like, you're a fucking prick. And I go, I'm telling you, this is what's gonna happen. Like, I'm not even trying to be fucking sarcastic about it. I'm just saying, like, you're gonna get fucking
maybe a little
bored,
cynical,
and
but not.
It's gonna be a lot more fun. And it was honestly a thing. Like, fucking British literature is so hard to get through. Like, I think I maybe took one course in it, and it was like,
Isn't that like trying to read like the original Moby Dick? Like it's damn near unreadable.
it's like Moby Dick.
you're just
is
like, what's
readable.
happening?
I didn't take a single class in it,
I
so I
lost
have
what was
no
happening
idea.
3 pages ago. It's just
Moby
words
Dick
now.
is completely readable. Like, the Scarlet Letter is just fucking trash.
Wasn't a good movie either. You wouldn't know.
But
Get
I mean,
get a TV.
it's such a giant pill to swallow with such little, like, okay, you're not going to bartend. Do you want to be a teacher? No. Like,
Yeah, I had a friend, Sarah Khan. I don't know if she'll ever see this, but she's like a friend of an ex-girlfriend of mine, and she started like teaching at charter schools here in town. You couldn't pay me. They don't get paid enough. They don't get paid enough.
no.
They don't get paid enough. These people, it's straight abuse from 9 to 5 on this. Like they get, she goes, there's words I've never used before coming from fifth graders at me for like giving them homework. I don't even know what to do.
I have a buddy.
So that's not 9 to 5. That's like 9 to 3:30 plus 9 hours.
True, it does
because
become a
they're
lifetime.
Like, it's like 11
9 to
o'clock
5
at
a.m.
night.
almost.
Yeah,
because-
it's like they're grading. My mother was a teacher.
When you get the calls after.
Yeah,
You get
my mother was a teacher. She worked in inner city schools on the West Coast, and it's like when people like, that's one of my biggest like when people start dragging on teachers like, well, if you fail at life, be a teacher or something like that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, the greatest superheroes ever are teachers. The fact that they will put up with like kids like me.
Dude,
No, so I mean,
yeah.
Well, when I worked at Creepy Crawl, we had this guy. His name was Jared.
I think we're recording on dead space, my man.
You think so?
That light's not blinking like it used to.
Oh, there's a light that blinks. Huh?
There's a little red light that I don't think we're recording. Which is fucked. We have the world's. Let's just hope we're not recording. And if so, put it in. It's going to be on the reel. He's the worst producer possible. Like, Frasier had Roz. We have the opposite of Roz. Terrible.
Which
Emos is terrible. What's your hot take on emos? Emos is garbage. Hot trash.
Are you serious?
Nope. I like emos.
All right.
Oh, I love emos. It's
I
fucking great.
think emos. I love cracker crust.
You know what I like more than emos though?
What's that?
Alicia's.
Alicia's is pretty good, but you know what the blackthorn is?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's
The
a different game.
blackthorn taco pizza.
Oh no, only the deep dish from Blackthorn.
No,
The best pizza in town is
Taco
Pie
Pizza.
Guy and get out
Taco
of here.
Pizza Tuesday. So when I first moved to St. Louis, I lived on McCree back when it was like meth
yeah.
central.
Yeah.
But before
times.
it's nice now. I lived there.
Yeah,
when,
because like back in the day, you go in and people had their like names etched in on those fucking broken boots in the back, and there was like one Ninja Turtle video game. It was all dark and
Are
weird.
you talking about Blackthorn?
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Had, like,
I
a
lived.
tube
But do
TV.
you know where McCree is?
Oh no.
McCree. It's the street that certain new restaurants and stuff and all that stuff's been done over there. So I lived on McCree over like in the Botanical Heights area before it was like gentrified.
Yeah, and it was rough because it's still rough.
Oh,
actually,
it's still rough.
it's just prettier.
It's just prettier.
Yeah.
During the day.
Yeah.
But so when I lived over there, where you just leave your door, you're just like your car's unlocked, so that you wouldn't get windows busted.
Yep,
It was just
South City style, man.
you just take $5-10 and change, and you just leave it in pennies sprinkled around the car, and you don't get busted windows.
I had an event. I did a block party for
I think
Halloween.
we just grazed right over that tactic a little too fast here. You just take pocket change and it's like bird
Sprinkle it.
seed, put it by somebody else's car.
No. You
Around
sprinkle
your
it
own.
around your own because you put it in the car because if somebody checks the doorknob, it's unlocked.
Yeah.
And then they look around the car and, they pick up, a couple bucks and quarters and
Oh,
stuff.
so you're saying the trick is to leave the car unlocked?
Yeah, you don't want to
I thought you
broken
were telling
window.
me that the trick was to sprinkle change outside
No.
the car. I'm like, what?
No, you wouldn't want I'm like, I don't want anybody else's car to get busted into.
Smarts.
Like, I'm like, my car's, I just left the car unlocked
So
and
I had I was throwing a block party in the Grove for Halloween. Monster Mash. But it was called Monster Mash, of course. But anyway, so I had to drive from Atomic Cowboy to Urban Chestnut, back and forth, And we had a liquor booth and bands playing in Urban Chestnut's parking lot. So like I parked my car, and like you do, you leave the door unlocked. And I come back to my car, and there's a police officer with a guy on the back hood of my car. And he's like, "Is any of this yours?" And it was like my phone charger and some change. And I go, "I just need the phone charger back. Everything else I don't care about, And he was just like,
"You can have my change, sir."
And he was like, "By the way, you should lock your car." And I go, "Why?"
Shut the fuck up.
I go, "So this guy can fucking bust out a window and get away?" I would go, "You're not going to arrest him anyway. You're just giving him a hard fucking time." I go, "The least of my worries is what happens to this, and I don't give a fuck if he takes a $15 phone charger." I go, "I don't want to buy a fucking $300 window.
Yep.
So fix that." And he was just like, "Get the fuck out of here and lock your goddamn car." And I was just like,
This is cop tone.
this is always
Rhubarb.
Gone, get out of here.
You're like, you realize I'm the victim here, right? Like,
Wait, when did I become the asshole?
yeah, when did I forgot to lock the car because I didn't want to pay $300.
To keep my fucking windows. And the fact that someone working in that area too just doesn't understand that fucking perspective, I don't know if St. Louis still makes their cops live in the districts that they serve. I don't think they do.
No, that
was a fucking law that should fucking be reversed so fucking fast.
No, they all work here and then they go live in the county where they don't have to live in the city that they got to deal with.
I would love to have
and I'm not like anti-cop by any means either, because I can't imagine having to be a cop in this town. Like it is the wild fucking West out there. Like, that's why they won't pull you over for traffic, because, like, why am I going to pull you over for a busted blinker when you probably have a gun? Like, it doesn't seem like it's worth the risk.
I got pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt the other day.
It's because you're white. You're going to pay that ticket, son.
They didn't give me a ticket, but I was like, what?
Never been pulled over?
In your life?
Ever?
Never had a speeding ticket?
I've been in jail. Like,
knock on fucking wood. Yeah.
You haven't been pulled over.
I'll edit the noise out. I don't give a fuck.
So here, I've always planned to own a distillery, and I was terrified. Like, if you look at things, you can only have so many citations in your life if you want to own a controlled substance manufacturing facility.
Because I'm working on opening up my own place,
and I was like terrified about, so my wife drives my wife every time we go places, like anywhere long distance. She's like, "I'm driving." She's like, "You go 5 under the speed limit."
You're clean, so you're not even on the grid.
Not even on the grid.
Who are you again?
I had one accident.
No fingerprints.
I had one accident when I was in college. I'm going across a bridge in Atchison, Kansas, and and the bridge used to be made out of metal decking, so it was raining. And when I slammed on the brakes, hit the car in front of me. And then they issued a warrant for my arrest because they accidentally put on the court records to have the court date on a Sunday, which they're closed on a Sunday. So I got arrested but then they reversed all of it and, said sorry and didn't charge me anything. So I was like,
yeah,
cool. What a rough encounter with the long arm of the law.
Actually, I've gotten arrested for tickets I've paid before. St. Louis County. They're busy up there.
Got to compete with Johnson County. That's a place.
Yeah. Johnson County.
You wake up, walk outside, you got a ticket waiting for you for no
reason.
I remember going to court. I remember
richest county in the country.
You can get pulled over for going over. So comically, I lived in Johnson County. Well, I worked in Johnson County in KC.
I lived just across. Was at 84th or whatever, like to where it became not Kansas City, it became Prairie Village. So I was in Joco.
So I lived in Olathe, Kansas, but I worked in Joco. And so one time I'm sitting at a light and this lady inches over the line, like, the line before you go, and the cop flipped on her lights and pulled him over.
I got a cop at my house because I parked a scooter that I bought there, and they wanted to make sure that everything was cool with it. I was like, how do you even know?
They've got nothing better to do.
I was like, they just go around. They're the sheriff of Nottingham. They just go around and collect fucking fees.
All right. So before we run out of time, and we've kind of grazed over it, and you also have like easily another 3 hours worth of content. But when I met you, you said that you spent some time with the Chartreusian monks in France.
Yeah, so we went over there and we there was a lot of talking with them and kind of working through the
some floor sweeping.
Yeah.
Dude, anything to get inside those freaking walls. That's insane. Like, that's hands down my favorite spirit on the planet. And I'm not alone there.
There's a lot of, I don't know what would be kind of like now that, like, I guess coming up on like 15 years ago, they weren't as popular, you know, kind of like the rebirth of American cocktail culture. It's different now than what it was.
You think it's more industrialized now?
No, I don't think that it is, but I think that they wouldn't let people in like they used to.
Oh, I got you.
And so for me, that was kind of, I think I kind of, and that was when I was kind of getting into the culture, the spirits distillation culture was, kind of pursuing. It was right at a time before the American kind of change where we were, you know, drinking, you know.
It was the rebirth of the cocktails and chartreuse.
Yep. Like mid to late 90s. We're done with vodka now.
Really.
Right. So. And so I was able to go over at the time when it was, it wasn't as big as it had been, and it wasn't as big as it is now, to where, you know, somebody coming over and volunteering to work around them wasn't a big deal. They're like, sure, if you want to work for free, come over and work for us. And I was kind of, you know, there anyway. So I was like, hey,
again.
Yeah, no, everything's going to shut off.
This is more important than all of it.
And so that was kind of, and that's how I found pretty much the culture in which I was learning to distill was ripe for someone like me in, you know, the mid 2000s to come spend time volunteering for them, just saying, hey, you know, I don't need pay. I'm just a tourist. Let me sweep your floors. I just want to work around the people that are doing what they're doing.
Right. Did you ever get to do anything with the actual product itself, or was it just kind of like...
Just a lot of observing.
Yeah.
Which is worth a lot.
No, obvious. Yeah.
And
to just absorb like what you see is huge.
And we've got something that'll come out here in probably a few years. That's
yeah, because I mean, other than chartreuse, there's the Del Toro. I always forget what it's called, but it's similar to chartreuse, but there's really nothing like chartreuse on the planet.
There's the Genepe des Alpes, which is just
not even.
It's very, very different, but
Genepe, which is
just like a little, almost like a nod to alpine herbs more than anything.
And then they were kicked out of the French government 3 times. And 3 times they returned because the French government kept trying to take over the industry.
Yeah, they couldn't take
it. They kept not being able to duplicate it.
Yep. And so one of our biggest things is we have no desire to make anything that somebody else is already making.
Well, and that was the other thing too, is we had Meredith Berry on. She has her own kind of like chartreuse, chartreusian liqueur, you know.
Yeah. And
that was our point, to being like, this is how it's similar, this is how it's different, but like,
yeah,
why would you ever try to remake it? You know what I mean?
Well, and that's and so a lot of people, like right now, there's like a whole thing of like decoding chartreuse, and
it's a waste of fucking time.
Yeah, well, and my thing is like, why?
Like a lot of benefit.
Like, as long as you understand the techniques and understand like the care and quality in which they're making something, then it doesn't matter how they make it. It's about finding your own rhythm.
Well, that's also something in this industry anyway, that I feel like you and hopefully more people like-minded like you who are producing spirits are understanding what's actually sacred with what's going on. You know what I mean? And just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yep.
And
like if we've learned anything from Jurassic Park. you never
it's all about Jurassic Park.
But there's a very valid point of like, you know, like,
just because you can,
it doesn't mean you should. And that exists in bartending too. And when I bring people up, like, I want people to understand tradition, and I want to understand like where we are now, because literally, like, you start bartending today, you're setting your fucking bar up on the shoulders of giants, because so many people for decades and fucking centuries have done all the work for you. So it's a lot easier now.
Yep.
To
like
fucking
workflow, how to set up a bar, what to expect. I mean, Jim Meehan wrote
right,
bartender's
which
manual
is
sets it
normal.
all up
That's
for you.
Yeah.
that's just human innovation at its finest. But like, God damn it, just leave some shit alone. And let some stuff be pure. You know.
Well, and leave some things pure, but also it's like if you want to make things, make it.
Yeah, create.
Don't go create something new, because and that's the thing with our liqueurs. And in the future you're going to see some really interesting things come out, because everybody says, well, what if you made this? What if you made that? And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Sure, we could make some money off that. But what if we made something nobody's ever had before? Can you imagine? And they're like, well, how would we sell it? And I'm like,
but that's like the goal of art. I mean, when you're up and coming, it's imitate until
actually,
you get your own.
Well, and it's, I think it was Confucius. It's like he laid out the 3 ways, and it's like, imitation is the easiest way to, and I can't think of the saying that Confucius said, but it breaks down the way that you do something. That it's either you go out and learn a new skill, which is the hardest, you imitate, which is the easiest. And I can't remember the third, but
the third would be innovation, right?
yeah, you invent something. But I have to look at the Confucius saying, and I'll send it to you. But the point at what he gets at is that you can imitate somebody else doing something great. And yeah, you can be pretty good at it, but it's easier. Or you want to create your own way. And to me, it's like, how often are all of these people building bars on the shoulders of giants? Well, what if they had to go out and innovate themselves? What if you had to create brand new cocktails that had never been done before? How cool would that be? Because then the next generation gets to inherit something that's different.
And that's the exact thing we've touched on this before. I don't know if it was Meredith or what, but when you're in a vocation or you're doing stuff like what you're doing, the idea is to innovate and hand that off to someone so they can take that even further. And like you said, re-evaluating how we look at something is important, because again, it goes up with that saying like, well, that's just how it's always been done. Like that's always the worst answer.
Yep. Meredith brought in this bergamot liqueur that she made, and it's everything you'd ever want out of bergamot,
Yep. Bergamot's awesome.
Right. And it was just pure bergamot. She didn't do anything to it. It just was what it was. But it was such a rare experience to drink. And like, she was talking to us about it and being like, well, maybe I should add this or that. And my point then and my point now still was like, why? Like,
yeah.
And she responded with like well, how are other people going to take it? And I was just like, we have 2 pretty knowledgeable people across the fucking room from you. It's like, this is fucking incredible,
But when you create things, I think there's this natural inclination sometimes to water your own shit down.
But the thing is like,
Meredith is awesome, by the way.
what's that? Meredith's fucking fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah, she's fucking.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
I don't want. Yes, awesome.
Yeah. As soon as Taste closed, the first thing I did was call Meredith and was like, I'm going to do whatever I can do to make sure that you stay in fucking St. Louis and do not go back to Chicago. And she's like, no, I'm here. Everything's cool. Like, I was very, very much imperative to like making sure she does not leave the city, because I think she's actually really important for what's happening here. But there's a point of it where it's just like, and this has worked with me so well with like who I am and what I've done, whether it's musically, whether it's career-wise, whether it's bartending, has always got to be like, I know what's right, and I'm going to fucking fight that. And that's the core, and the universe has a way of working around that.
Yeah.
And there's enough out there now, and there's enough people who are interested in all these little passions and all these little nuanced niches of fucking like what's going on, that like when you believe in something and you have standards like you do yourself, and that's your forefront, people are attracted to it, and you're going to be successful in that. And seeing you do it is just another great example of it. So
yeah, and I appreciate that. And one of the things, like, for us that we've benefited is that we don't have this massive profit driving engine behind us. Is that, you know, what you see on the market's very different. Like if you guys come out and join us for a tour or anything like that, it's one of the things that we benefit from is being able to just do things, you know, making a barrel of this or that and just, you know, or just making a concoction and throwing it in a, you know, 15-gallon glass demijohn to never be touched by anything. Right. It's just amazing. And being able to just sit down with, you know, because we make hundreds of different tinctures, and we have a, so like our Curacao, that is a product of an endless barrel of bitters. So the base for our Curacao that we put in barrel is a bottomless barrel. So we always top it off with new bitters. Nice. And so the bitters that are in that are no less than 4 years old, because we started that bitters barrel first.
It's like sour mashed Curacao.
No less than 4 years old.
No less than 4 years old. And as we get older, every year we get older, that gets older. So the bitters base that we add to the barrel to blend with the new make is no less than 4 years old.
But goes as far as possibly how
well,
old?
So
like what's
our
the oldest
distillery is officially 4 years old.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
So every year the distillery gets older, the bitters barrel and that's how all of our liqueurs are. So a lot of our liqueurs that haven't even hit the market yet.
But really,
how long have you been distilling
Barbara Walters
amateurly? Because it is legal in Missouri to actually distill.
Federally, it is illegal.
Not for profit, not for money, but as a hobby.
My client has no response at this point.
Okay, that makes sense. And also, just to clear up one more thing too, you talk about getting some of your ingredients and stuff from Louisiana.
Yeah.
So is that another sect of your family that works in a farm there? That's
so
over?
because
you have no other employees.
Yeah, so we have no other employees, but we have connections to a family distillery that is, you know, like second generation, twice removed. I can't remember how like that whole removed thing works. They're my great grandfather's. Like,
so you're
brothers.
working with cousins, pretty much,
like second cousin stuff.
Yeah.
So our family, we bought the farm in 1915. Mm-hmm. We weren't sugarcane farmers before 1915. There are times that we kind of joke that we still aren't sugarcane farmers because we grow a very kind of unique sugarcane variant, which is called Louisiana Purple. It's a type of sugarcane that's mostly extinct because
surely I've smoked something similar before, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's Hawaiian. I think that's called. So we grow a type of sugarcane that's not used to commercial, and the reason why is because it doesn't produce as much sugar as everybody else. But we were cobblers. So we made shoes.
You just wanted one more fucking.
No, we were cobblers.
Cobblers like for shoes?
Yeah. So we were shipwrights, and we worked so comically we were Catholic Irish immigrants. We were former lords, and then when the English Empire,
no, you're in America, you ain't a lord anymore.
No. So when the English Empire like switched over, they decided to start beheading people. So the rest of them kind of came across the country.
Not into that.
Yeah, we were like, let's keep our heads. So we came across this, and we landed in Louisiana. And so for 100 years, they were sharecroppers and shoemakers. And then at a point, we became Cajuns. So we were French, Irish, Scotch, Indian, kind of like every American,
Yeah, like I mean, I know, like especially down there, like Cajun Creole, like there's some French history there, but it is its own unique culture and almost language in some cases.
and it's a very different language. I don't speak it. I wish that had been passed on. I'm trying to learn, but so that's kind of where it kind of started. And so in 1905 to 1907, somewhere around there, we bought the farm because it was kind of defunct. And that was where we kind of started farming sugarcane, and we don't do it the best. Like for a long time, we almost kept going bankrupt. The family kept going bankrupt doing it because they weren't great at farming.
Right.
And then that's kind of where Yeah. And
not because the economy was bad, just bad at it. Okay, I got you.
And then, and then from there, it transitioned into eventually having this unique product. People were really interested because the flavor was different. And then fast forward to the early 2000s, people started showing me, you know, what the family's been making for 100 years, like, you know, just on the side juice and stuff like that during harvest. And I was like, this is fascinating. Why aren't we selling this? And everybody was like, oh, it's too hard to do that. And so I was like, why not? Let's try it. And so, and then the aging climate here is better than Louisiana. So that's why we have the distillery here. So, yep.
You know, and it's also funny for someone who has such deep-rooted standards that you chose a spirit that's easily the most bastardized in the whole fucking industry too. So
it's because I feel like nobody's fighting for it. And also in the American industry, there are a few.
There's national seminars I've attended where the rum aficionado has said, just so you know, there's a lot of fuckery, you know. Don't believe everything on the label. And it's totally fine because that's just the way the industry is. But it's very difficult to find a pure spirit like that. So
yeah, it's an uphill battle. There are days that we fight it, and then there are days that we just like, you know what, we're just gonna make rum liqueurs and just not care, and just like, you know, there are days that we like definitely get like completely aggravated, and then also we just laugh about it and just be like, you know what, like tomorrow we're fight, today we're just gonna distill. But and you know, it comes back to St. Louis culture. If we didn't have St. Louis culture, we probably couldn't exist. And you know, that comes a lot back to like last year during COVID and everything. It was like we didn't make a lot of money, but it was like the money we did make, we donated back to the community. And it was just like all of our profits we donated back, because it was like the only reason we exist is because of St. Louis. It's just kind of like the way we see it is, you know, Missouri is our home. Because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our people. So,
well, it looks like we're out of time. Freaking love that you even came on here, man. This is awesome. We're not even at 10 episodes yet, and this has been, by and far one of the most educational and entertaining ones. What you got for wrap-ups?
Just, man, like, you're a man with a lot of integrity, selling a spirit with even more integrity, and
very noble.
We appreciate your time.
I'm just gonna keep doing it.
This has been a pleasure, and I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg of your experiences and knowledge. So, thank you for coming out here.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me. It's it was worth a drive in and enjoying. You know, it's different now. It's been like a year since we really, you know, it's weird. So it's great coming out and seeing you guys and hanging out.
It's always been great talking to you, but this was fucking really awesome. So thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome.
Like, share, and subscribe.
You gotta do it with heart, man.
Just
like, subscribe, and share the bear.